A Pathogen Presentation on Hansen's Disease and Meningococcal Meningitis by Mario Milos. Hansen's disease, also known as leprosy, is a bacterial infection. The primary causative agent of Hansen's disease is Mycobacterium leprae. Mycobacterium lepromatosis is also seen as a causative agent in some cases. Both have a morphology of a gram-positive bacillus. However, one unique characteristic of the primary causative, Mycobacterium leprae, is the cell wall structure contains mycolic acids. These acids make the bacteria more resistant to staining and antibiotics, which may point to the reason why this infection has been a problem for so long. When looking into the main signs and symptoms of Hansen's disease, it's good to start with the body's initial reaction. Therefore, in the beginning, victims may experience skin lesions, as you see in this picture here, numbness, and sensory loss due to nerve damage, as well as muscle weakness. If left untreated, Hansen's disease can become worse, causing severe and irreversible nerve damage, continued muscle weakness, and permanent deformities. Advanced stages can lead to disabilities and even blindness. So, like many infections, Hansen's disease is primarily spread through prolonged close contact with respiratory secretions of an infected individual. I say prolonged because this infection is slow growing. What to do? Specific treatments for Hansen's disease involve antibiotics such as dapsone, rifampicin, and clofazimine. It is important to note that dapsone inhibits bacterial folate synthesis. Bacterial folate synthesis is the process by which bacteria produce folate, or vitamin B9, which contributes to essential cellular functions like DNA synthesis and repair. Rifampicin disrupts RNA synthesis, and clofazimine interferes with bacterial DNA replication. As you can see, these drugs collectively target different aspects of bacterial growth, hoping to kill bacteria. Additionally, multi-drug therapy regimens can be recommended depending on how severe the infection is. Multi-drug therapy involves a medical condition or disease using more than one medication simultaneously. This strategy helps prevent the development of antibiotic resistance by the bacteria, which may otherwise occur due to the length of the treatment. Preventative measures include good hygiene and general health, as well as early detection of the infection and contact tracing to identify and treat individuals who have been infected. BCG is a leprosy vaccine that can be administered. However, the effectiveness of this preventative measure varies. Due to this, the vaccine is not widely used. Hansen's disease has a long history dating back to ancient times, with evidence of its presence found in historical texts and skeletal remains. Possibly the most famous example of this is in the Bible, where leprosy is mentioned multiple times, representing sin and how it eats away at our lives, along with many other deeper meanings. In recent times, the prevalence and severity of Hansen's disease has decreased significantly due to global efforts to eradicate this infection. However, it remains an epidemic in some countries, particularly in parts of Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Documented outbreaks of Hansen's disease have occurred in various regions, especially in areas with poor health care and limited access to treatment. One infamous outbreak that plagued the Hawaiian Islands lasted for the majority of the 19th century. The exact number of those affected is hard to determine due to the limited historical records and the stigma around the infection. However, it is believed that the number is in the thousands. Although Hansen's disease has gotten less damaging to the human race over time, it is still prevalent, infecting around 200,000 people each year. So now, after hearing about all this, after hearing about the ancient history of this virus, what do you believe is the oldest documented case of Hansen's disease? I'll give you a second. Hansen's disease, or leprosy, is mentioned in the book of Leviticus in the Old Testament, which is written between the 6th and 4th century BCE. That is roughly 2,600 years ago. To put this into perspective, this would be the equivalent of coronavirus still being a problem in the year 4620. Meningococcal meningitis is a severe bacterial infection that occurs in the protective membranes around the brain and spinal cord. The causative agent of meningococcal meningitis is the bacterium Neisseria meningitis, often referred to as meningococcus. The bacteria causing this infection appear as gram-negative pairs of diplococci with pili found on the cell's surface. The main signs and symptoms of meningococcal meningitis include a sudden onset of fever, severe headache, neck stiffness, nausea, vomiting, sensitivity to light, mental health problems, and a skin rash. If left untreated, the infection can quickly progress to septicemia or septic shock, causing organ failure and death. Assuming they survive, survivors may experience long-term complications such as hearing loss and neurological defects. Similarly to leprosy, this bacteria is primarily spread through respiratory droplets from coughing, sneezing, or close contact with an infected person. However, meningitis spreads much quicker than Hansen's disease, so it is not looked at as prolonged. One treatment for meningococcal meningitis is administering medications that target the bacteria responsible, such as ceftriaxone or cefotaximine. These antibiotics kill bacteria by inhibiting the synthesis of the bacterial cell walls. When looking for preventative measures, vaccination with meningococcal vaccines may protect you from this illness. Along with vaccines, good hygiene practices like washing your hands could help you prevent this infection as well. Meningococcal meningitis has been documented for centuries, with historical records of the outbreak dating back to the 16th century. Despite its long history and devastation, it didn't become widely recognized and studied until the 19th and 20th centuries. In sub-Saharan Africa, there is a region referred to as the African Meningitis Belt. This gigantic area of land spans from Senegal in the west to Ethiopia in the east, a distance of nearly 3,000 miles. To paint you a picture, if you started in New York City and traveled to LA, you would still have about 500 miles to travel into the Pacific before you reach this distance. In this area, there are about 30,000 cases that are reported each year. Various factors have led places like this to be hotspots for meningitis. Many believe this is due to a large portion of the belt having limited access to clean water and ideal sanitation. Although this infection can affect people of all ages, adolescents and young adults have been more susceptible to outbreaks due to close quarters of school and college and the low rate of good hygiene found among young children. It's important to note that high instances of this infection have also been found in military barracks. Although Africa is a hotspot for meningitis, there have been many documented outbreaks worldwide. One notable outbreak was the Hajj-related outbreak in Saudi Arabia in the year 2000, which spread to multiple countries in the Middle East. Many believe the widespread of this disease is due to the large congregation of pilgrims traveling in the area at this time. This resulted in about 1,300 people infected, with 130 of these cases ending in fatality. And in addition, people also believe that the dense population of people living in these areas affected to this severity. So other than the routes of transmission previously listed, why might the Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa be such hotspots for meningococcal meningitis? Think about it. Look at these two pictures. On the left here, you have a major city in the meningitis belt, and then on the right here, you have a major city in the Middle East. What is similar about these two? Well, Neisseria meningitis has an interesting ability. The dry, dusty environment that characterizes Sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East adhere to the bacteria's ability to be carried out by dust particles across their environment.